There is one truth about life that nobody escapes, no matter how rich, how poor, how smart, or how lucky they are. Every single day, a part of your life burns away, whether you use it or not. This is the story of a boy who was given a single candle and a strange instruction from his father that he did not understand until it was almost too late. In a quiet village surrounded by mustard fields, there lived a boy named Samir. Samir was cheerful, likable, and full of big dreams. He wanted to become someone important one day, respected, successful, admired. But like many boys his age, he believed all of that would simply happen eventually, on its own, whenever he finally felt ready to begin. Until then, he saw no harm in taking things slow. He woke up late. He wandered through the fields with his friends. He avoided his studies, avoided his father's small shop, avoided anything that required real effort, always telling himself the same comforting lie: there's still plenty of time. His father, a calm and patient man named Yusef, watched this pattern for years, saying little, hoping his son would understand on his own. But one evening, he finally decided it was time for a different kind of lesson, one Samir would never forget. He called Samir into a small, windowless storage room at the back of their house and placed a single candle on a wooden stool. "Sit here," Yusef said, lighting the candle. "I am going to leave you in this room for exactly 1 hour. When I return, tell me what you did with the candle's light." Samir laughed. "That's it. Just sit here. Just sit here," his father repeated calmly, and closed the door behind him. At first, Samir found it amusing. He stared at the small flame, watched the shadows dance on the walls, and hummed a tune to pass the time. The room was quiet, a little boring, but harmless enough. He didn't read anything. He didn't think about anything useful. He simply sat, letting his mind wander, waiting for the hour to end. Slowly, the candle grew shorter. Wax dripped down its sides and pooled at the base. But Samir barely noticed. To him, it was just a candle burning in an empty room, nothing more. When his father finally opened the door, the candle had burned down to barely a stub, its flame flickering weakly. "Well," Yusef asked, "what did you do with the light?" Samir shrugged. "Nothing really. I just sat here." His father nodded slowly, as if he already knew the answer before asking. "Tomorrow," he said, "we will try this again." The next evening, Yusef placed a fresh candle in the same room. But this time, before closing the door, he added one more instruction. "Tonight, I want you to use every minute of this candle's light for something worth doing. When the flame goes out, I want you to have something to show me." Samir sat down, unsure what something to show even meant. But this time, with the instruction fresh in his mind, he picked up an old notebook lying in the corner of the room and began practicing his handwriting by the candle's glow, something his teacher had been asking him to improve for months. At first, it felt tedious. His hand cramped. The light flickered unevenly, making it hard to see the lines clearly. More than once, he wanted to simply give up and wait out the hour like before. But he kept going. By the time the candle burned down to its final stub and finally went out, Samir had filled several pages. Messy in places, but far better than anything he'd written in months. When Yusef opened the door and saw the notebook in his son's hands, he smiled, not with surprise, but with quiet satisfaction. "Do you understand now?" he asked. Both candles burned for exactly the same amount of time. Neither one lasted a second longer because you used it well, and neither one lasted a second less because you wasted it. Samir looked down at the melted wax, then at his notebook full of practiced handwriting. "The candle doesn't care what you do with its light," Yusef continued. "It simply burns until it's gone, with or without your permission, with or without your attention. The only real choice you have is whether you use that light, or let it disappear into an empty room, lighting nothing at all." Samir sat in silence, letting the truth settle over him. He thought about all the evenings he had spent exactly like that first candle, present, but doing nothing. Days that had already burned away completely, with nothing to show for them. Years he couldn't get back, spent lighting empty rooms instead of building anything real. "Every day you're given," his father said gently, "is a candle you didn't ask for, but you have anyway. It will burn the same length whether you study or whether you waste it staring at walls. The flame doesn't wait for you to feel ready. It simply burns." From that night forward, something changed in Samir. He began treating each day the way he had treated that second candle, with intention. He studied with real focus instead of pretending to. He helped at his father's shop, learning the trade instead of avoiding it. He started noticing, almost painfully, how many hours he used to let burn away for nothing. It wasn't a dramatic transformation overnight. Some days, old habits pulled him back toward comfort and distraction. But every time he felt himself drifting, he pictured that first wasted candle, melted down to nothing, having lit an empty room for a full hour, with absolutely nothing to show for it. And that image was usually enough to pull him back. Years later, Samir became known throughout the village, not for wealth, though he had built a respectable business by then, but for something rarer. People said he never seemed to waste a moment, yet he never seemed rushed either. He simply used his time with quiet purpose, the way some people breathe without even thinking about it. One evening, a younger boy from the village, restless and unsure of his own future, asked Samir for advice. Samir didn't lecture him. Instead, he lit a candle, placed it on a table between them, and said, "Watch this candle for the next hour. Then tell me, did you use its light, or did you simply let it burn?" The boy looked confused, exactly as Samir once had. But Samir only smiled, remembering a small, windowless room from many years ago. That is the lesson this story carries. Time does not pause to ask if you're ready. It does not wait for motivation, or the right mood, or a better tomorrow. Like a candle, it simply burns, steadily, quietly, whether you're using its light to build something meaningful or letting it flicker uselessly in an empty room. You cannot relight a candle that has already burned down, and you cannot relive a day that has already passed. So ask yourself honestly, is today's candle lighting something worth building? Or is it simply burning away in an empty room, while you wait for a tomorrow that will burn exactly the same way? Unless something changes today, the flame doesn't wait. Use the light while it's still yours.